Hey, John Gilroy here. In most organizations, the newest employee in the software section is assigned the tedious task of testing. How can you effectively test applications given today's limited budget and tight timelines? Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Adam Rosenbaum, Director of Public Sector at a company called Tricentis, Tricentis. Adam, how are you?
Good afternoon, John. Great to see you.
Well, I really don't want to talk about testing. When I was in fifth grade, I learned to hate tests. No one likes tests. And guess what? I don't think software developers like testing either, do they?
Testing's the only way to know if you know what you're doing.
I know it is, but it's really important. And, you know, if I ever go to a doctor, I want to make sure he's passed some very complicated tests in order to treat me, don't you?
That's it.
Yeah. Well, today we're talking about the software development lifecycle and testing in the federal government. Let me just paint the picture for you. But before we begin, I have to admit, we are recording this from Caboose Brewing in lovely downtown Vienna, Virginia. So what do you think about the Caboose here? Fun place?
Great place. Already had at least one beer, and I'll tell you, they're a nice selection.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I know the owner of this place. I've seen it grow up, so it's a real fun place to do interviews. Okay, so testing is normally part of any given software development lifecycle. Normally it's at the end, but what happens, you get a pressure for deadline, you're running out of money, and so some people may, let's just say, cut corners of testing. Have you ever seen that happen in your experience?
Yeah, we have, and it's a unique opportunity for Tricentis to get involved with our customers because, number one, we try to be fanatical about our customers, help them deliver those outcomes they're trying to achieve, whether it's a commercial opportunity or a government opportunity where we specialize in. But the way we generally engage with folks is demonstrate to them that, you know, over the last 20 years or so, software testing's always been around. However, it's been cumbersome. It's been lengthy. It's been very manual. And where we've worked real hard over the last few years is to bring to market capability that automates some of these processes, for lack of better terms, democratizes some of these processes so that our customers can get to the outcomes that they need faster, more efficiently, and more effectively.
Now, years ago, I did work for a software company, and they would take their first hire, and they hated doing it. It was so tedious and repetitive and boring. And these were bright young people with creative ideas and hardworking, and they'd have this real boring task of repeating. And there's got to be a way to automate it. And it's taken a while, but finally, you've learned how to automate some of these basic tests. Is that right?
Yeah. So from that automation perspective, I think kind of how we got here is over time, organizations, whether, across the DC area, whether they're a systems integrator providing capability to programs of record in the government or the government itself, has really looked at, software as almost a center of excellence, right? And because of that, testing has come with that. So there's a lot more stronger foundations in testing. You can see some of the policy and regulation coming out of the DoD and different civilian agencies where there is an emphasis on this testing. And that's because, there's lots of software and applications out there being used. And they all culminate together to achieve whatever that organization's outcome is. So we generally see now more and more better educated, really very niche organizations that can do some of the software testing internally. But to your point about the automation piece, it's, how do you effectively manage that? It's something you have to do, week over week, year over year. And that's where we look to provide that automation so that we can reposition or repurpose folks so that they can focus on their main job, which is usually not just software testing.
I was listening to a podcast interview with a leader over at HHS, and he said, we have 1,200 applications here. I wrote it. I was stunned at that. And apparently I shouldn't be. I mean, 1,200 is not a big number.
Seems low. No, most organizations have tons of applications, and it runs a gamut of, think of your big, IT operations, your big companies like a ServiceNow, an SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, Workday, these big applications that are providing a lot of value to their customers. But there's tons of things that feed that, right? Especially as we get into a more AI world, right? We're increasing the use of automated intelligence. We're integrating data from multiple places. So that, it raises your risk profile on your basic application. So as, we start putting these applications into play and introducing things like AI, I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. Software testing reduces that risk and ensures those work. So 1,200, that was a long-winded way of saying 1,200. I don't even think that it's probably more than that.
Okay, let's go from 1,200 to 1. So let's say we have the Gilroy app about to be released and they go through testing. And just because you go through tests, I mean, it's not just an on-off switch. What you have to do, if you're a human being doing this, you've got to find a test environment, and you have to understand what's going on. And then if you have a bug, you have to reproduce it. I mean, this isn't a light switch thing. This isn't like painting a room in the basement. This gets to be very complicated, can't it?
Yeah. We see a lot of folks that do this really well. It's built into their culture. And I think you're seeing as folks are adopting agile methodologies and more modern DevSecOps capabilities and using great tools to do it. The testing has been managed in a lot more efficient way. I think the problem we're solving from that perspective is, one, how do you have a software of record that's managing that test, right? How do you ensure that you have visibility and reporting metrics and things like that? How do you automate it, or how do you manually test it? How do you test it at load? And how do you validate, 1 = 1 across systems? But more importantly is, how did the software act? How did I expect it to act? What do I need to do to fix it?
And sometimes there's a cultural problem there where people may not agree with some of the test results. Then you're at loggerhead, huh?
Data never lies generally, right? It doesn't, we try not to make data lie, but that's why we use tools like our tool QTest to effectively manage that process, so that we have a system of record or a store, a place of record where anybody can come in and validate and verify the testing results.
Okay. If you want to take and do just a limited, view of testing, well, does it work or not? It works. Okay. Get it out the door, ship it out the door. Well, wait a minute, Adam. There's a whole lot more to that. If you look into it, there's aspects like functional testing, which we know about.
Right.
What about performance testing and data integrity and mobile testing and user interface testing? It's like, well, it's not an easy checkbox. It's a difficult checkbox.
It is. So think of it. We're all consumers of something, and we're all constituents as well. So just like you'd like your Amazon Prime app to work properly, whether it be on your desktop or your iPhone or Samsung, the government has to deliver services the same way that Amazon does, right? Distribution, finance, paying taxes in a portal. So what makes this relevant to that is essentially you're able to ensure that experience by the end user, whether it be a business user or it be an actual constituent, they have the proper experience, execute the right transaction, and get to, again, I hate to keep harping on the outcome that's expected.
End user.
That's right.
So I'm taking down notes. I'm thinking, okay, end user. Let's say Adam runs a test and he finds out there's a 1% failure rate. Okay. Is that good or bad? Well, what if it's a federal website and it's tax season and there are millions of people visiting the website? All of a sudden, that 1% there's a big problem here.
As a Lean Six Sigma guy in the old days, 1% is way too much. So yeah, I mean, there's no silver bullet in anything in IT, right? You're always going to have risks associated with it. You have misfires, but generally the testing, how we look at it, how I think most companies look at it is, again, here's what was supposed to happen. What did happen? Was there an error? And then how do you fix that? So we work with companies and government entities that have to maintain, a 99.9999 uptime, right? Ooh. Huge SLAs. And how we generally see it, the kind of secret sauce behind it is they're running upwards of 200,000 test cases a night. When there's limited activity on the network, and they're running through that and validating. So the first thing in the morning. So I'm not going to say the name of the company, but there's a very large distribution company that works with a very large online vendor, and that's kind of their secret sauce to ensuring that the customer experience is good. The customer, the company delivering the capability has a great experience, because at the end of the day, we're fanatical about our customers.
Well, let's go to the White House now. There's an executive order that talks about user experience. And they want that user experience to be there. The people who are going to the IRS or to FEMA or to the VA, and they want that user experience to be important. But it boils down to Adam and his team helping the test. I mean, it's almost like in the weeds. There's a lot of pressure there in order to make that. So there's this big laudable goal. And then the reality is that, well, testing is going to make sure that when you put in a specific number on a website, you'll find out what your benefits are going to be, or what loan you can get from NIH or something. So the testing thing is a lot more important, I think people realize.
It is. And I think testing, like many other things, when you hit your light switch, you expect the power to come on, or you expect the light to turn on. It's the same experience with applications. So there's a lot of really, really great engineers and technical folks out there that are keeping these systems up, that are doing this testing. And I would venture to say most people don't even think about it, but shamelessly, we owe them a little bit of gratitude, I think.
If you are thinking about it and you're listening to this podcast, you can go to tricentis.com and go to public sector. Is that where you go and download a tool or something? What can you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our website, whether it's tricentis.com or tricentis.com/public sector, we have a number of pieces of content, ability to download demos that will kind of align to what maybe you're looking for. So whether it's user testing, performance testing, data integrity testing, we have all that there. We talk about, again, we work with, we're huge partners with SAP. We work with Oracle. We don't really care what the underlying application is because we have the ability to work with, I think it's at this point, well over 170 plus specific types of software. We also work with the government on custom software. And why that matters is we like to say we deliver one capability for all your problem sets around testing.
If you go to Google Trends and type in no code, low code, you'll see a hockey stick. This is what everyone's talking about. And I'm sure if you typed in AI, you'd see a similar hockey stick. So we got two hockey sticks here. So where does artificial intelligence play in automating this software? And what role does no code, low code play in automating this testing software?
Well, let me start with the no code, low code first. I think that's most important to this conversation and what most software testers are looking for. So traditionally, and when I said at the beginning of the podcast, there hasn't been much innovation in software testing over the last 20 years. And that's because there's a lot of folks out there typing out scripts while they're developing software or after implementation. So it's a very time-consuming process. And anytime you make a change, you do a patch update, you do a new version, you have to rewrite scripts, you have to rewrite code. Where we saw that as an opportunity to help our customers was make it so that we don't have to write scripts, right? That we have a test management function that understands and sees what's going on, and uses AI and other secret sauce tools to prevent you having to go back and keep rewriting and rescripting. We use a model-based format, which we don't have enough time to get into all that. Happy to take it with anybody offline, but essentially we look at how a transaction is supposed to flow. We capture that information, we validate it, and then now you have a software test.
6 months ago, I interviewed a gentleman named Derek Weeks, and he wrote a book about DevOps and DevOps community. He formed this DevOps community. There was thousands and thousands of people. It would seem like that would be your target audience. It would be if you could put together some kind of workshop and talk about, well, there's got to be workshops during like DevSoc days, 24 hours of DevSoc. So it seems like a good target audience for you. Is that right? Software developers?
Yeah, we work, really, it's kind of a little bit of everybody within a program, but the DevSecOps piece is critical because you have a bunch of great tools out there doing the DevSecOps function of, releasing, going into production. We generally integrate with those folks. We do not replace that tool. We're a complementary tool to that, but we make it easy by opening up our API and ensuring that, hey, I did a software test. I can push it into, to Git or Jenkins or whatever tool you're using. And then now the DevSecOps folks can keep going. And there's limited, we try to take that road bump out. And then moreover, again, we now have a historical record of how the test went. So that's how we're enabling our DevSecOps partners.
The cybersecurity people are always faced with ethical dilemmas when they find a problem. Who do they tell, how much they tell, and when? A lot of ethical problems there. What about testing? What if Adam runs a test and something comes up and you think maybe the product should not be deployed and someone else does? So does this happen?
I think for the use cases I've seen, I'd like to think it hasn't. I'm sure sometimes that does, but for the most part, the folks, our customers we've been working with, they're pretty, we're fanatical about the customer. These folks are fanatical about their requirements. And they, because again, the end state is that customer or constituent experience. So that's a real pride thing. I think from what we see with some of these larger applications is, you can't do that because it costs money. And we have examples where we've gone to a major financial company, a bank, and they were having an issue with a piece of their finance software. It was costing them upwards a couple $1 million a day until they could get it fixed. And that's the importance of that automation. That's the importance of having that test record so that you can go back and figure it out. The less investigation you have to do, the faster folks can fix those problems. So that was another long-winded way of saying our customers don't have that problem. They figure it out, they execute, and they do their best to meet their deadlines.
And in the software development community, there's certainly a big push for continuous improvement called CI, continuous improvement. So my question to you is, this is tested with each iteration. It's tested every time there's a patch. So when does the testing take place?
So really customer dependent. Some folks, like I said earlier, will do it every night. Some folks only after a patch. So think, there's a patch updates, at least weekly on most applications that are major enterprise applications. So you need to know how your environment will react to that patch. So that's a good one. And then also in the development, as people are building and looking, like, for instance, our SAP S4 upgrades, as folks modernize and lift and shift over to the cloud, you've got to validate that everything works as it did before you go live. So generally,
I never thought that's part of testing. I never thought of that.
All part of testing. I mean, you can't get away in software without doing testing. So that's, I would just say it depends. It depends on what the use case is, but most of our customers are testing every day. So
there are patches. I guess some patches could affect testing and some couldn't.
They could.
And so what if you're in a situation where, let's say, a federal agency asks you to test a certain patch and you find a problem, another federal agency does not ask you to test the patch? I mean, there could be problems just by what you sued not to test, huh? I mean, this is difficult.
That dilemma we have not seen, luckily. But yeah, generally, nobody will go to production without doing that testing, that regression testing. And the reason that's important is, again, you don't know how your environment will react to that. I think we do, but nothing's perfect. There's always risk. And again, to mitigate risk, you got to test.
So mobile testing, does that include UI UX, or what does mobile testing include? Just ability to handle different types of operating systems or security, or what does mobile testing entail?
So we don't focus 100% on security. That really isn't isn't really what we do. But from a mobile perspective, essentially we look at your applications, what's the impact, what's the load impact, and then does your application work on your phone and your, whatever device it is, the way it's supposed to work. So if I have, a piece of an application that I'm using on my desktop, on my web browser, how will that react on my phone? So if you look at a lot of like state and local organizations, a lot of mobile workforces, very, very critical utilities have to have that capability because they're mobile, right? So that's generally what we see is in those use cases. And again, it's mobile testing is a component of our test automation piece, and we're starting to see a lot more adoption of that.
Right, because post-COVID, the post-COVID world is a mobile world, and in the world of cybersecurity, people are taking advantage of that.
100%. And if you look at also, accessing your government network or your commercial network from your house or from the Caboose Brewing Company, to log in and do some work, what's that impact? So you have to load test those applications. You have to understand how they will react in different environments, whether it's degraded or the pristine enterprise environment.
I keep thinking of, you mentioned S4. I don't want to use the term platform agnostic, but you seem to be agnostic about a lot of these organizations you work with because you work with so many different types. And it's like, I don't care. Remember that one movie line? I don't care. If it works or doesn't work, and we can show you where the gaps are, and you can go from there, huh?
100%. So we say platform agnostic, vendor neutral, whatever buzzword marketing cooks up. But the reality of it is we're not worried about the underlying application. We're worried about ensuring it works. So we build our capability so that we can quickly, effectively implement and deploy, and you can use it on whatever application you need. And the benefit to that is you do not have a specific software. You don't have vendor lock across your enterprise environment. You can use it wherever you need to do it, however many times you want to do it, and achieve the successes and fixes you're looking for.
So what is a typical engagement for you? Is it a software development organization? Is it an agency may use your services? Or so what is a typical engagement for Tricentis?
That's a great question. So each one's a little bit different, but standard is obviously we understand what the IT environment looks like. We always try to understand, okay, what's your user base? Like how many people are doing this? And then we also do an assessment to say, where are you with test automation? Because in many cases, we still do manual testing, right? In some cases, in some cases, it may not be the right fit. It may not be the right time. So you really have to understand, and we help organizations see themselves And that's important in coming up and crafting that strategy. And then we get our smart people in, and we start figuring out, obviously licensing and things like that. But we have our best practices. We have an implementation support team. We work with tons of partners as well, systems integrators, and a couple other folks that will really, really zero in on where you're trying to go. And we try to do that as fast and upfront as possible, because generally we find a lot of things that no one thought about in this discovery process. And that influences, what that expected outcome is with our engagement. So we try to be, scope small, scale fast, and then, we'll expand scope over time.
Earlier I was told about the White House and executive order and millions of people, but there are organizations, let's say 3-letter organizations, that may have on-premise situations that need testing. And so you got to have an organization that say, yeah, we can handle but also the very, what's the word, maybe bespoke organizations have specific, unique requirements for testing.
Oh, right.
I'm not going to say an agency.
Everybody's unique. That's what we always say.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So looking forward, what kind of challenges do you think could happen in the next 5 to 10 years? And where's Tricentis going to be in the world of testing?
Yeah. So we're really investing as a company is in artificial intelligence. I think, again, that's kind of a big topic out government, out in industry, but it's really about how can we help folks develop and build test cases faster? How can we, deploy faster? How can we self-heal? How can we do certain things that allow customers to get after their business or their mission versus worried about software? Easier said than done, but that's really what we're focused on. So we've done a number of acquisitions to improve our position there. We're doing a ton of R&D in the sense of how do we deliver what we call Vision AI and things like that. So that's on our website. That's been launched and generally available. And there's obviously more coming. I have to be a little careful what I say, but it's all on our website. And then the other piece of this pie is looking at how do we really get after data integrity. So from that perspective, we've just started really working with folks around that data integrity. And the reasoning why is as you're doing software testing, you're getting you're looking at dummy data usually, right? So, but out there in production, right, there's real data. And so you have to have the tests and the ability to see yourself to understand how data traverses across your enterprise, specifically going API to API, because that will put data and, pieces of information into machine learning and AI models and things like that. And we try to work with our customers to ensure they don't have data poisoning, whether it be a malicious actor, that's a threat vector as well. But also sometimes people make mistakes, also there's things like, conversions and things like that. So one of our big use cases around that data integrity piece is ensuring conversions are right in your environment. So think finance, think logistics, that has to happen. That has to be right. Otherwise it costs, the government or the end user money. So that's really what we're focused on right now. I hate to say AI like everybody else, but it's AI simplifying it, deploying faster, and then ensuring we are building upon capability to do software test automation.
I taking notes when you talked about data integrity, I wrote down synthetic data, because what some organizations are doing is they're producing synthetic data and they're basing systems on that data. Mm-hmm. Well, what if it isn't valid? I mean, how do you know it? It's synthetic. Well, so what? I mean, you'd have to test it, wouldn't you? Yeah.
I mean, it kind of, I hate to answer that with it depends as well, but a lot of folks put dummy data in to just test transactions.
Yeah.
Some folks, we generally recommend dummy data, right? That's an industry best practice. But there's other use cases where maybe not, right? So, it kind of depends on the customer's requirement. I hate to be very ambiguous there.
No. It makes perfect sense, especially with the wide range.
Right.
I mean, millions down to very, very small, very highly sensitive organizations. It's a good, I think even listeners a better idea of how complex this whole idea of testing is and how important it is actually to use artificial intelligence in the future. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Adam Rosenbaum, Director of Public Sector at Tricentis.